Welcome to the Milestones Podcast, where we engage, inform, and encourage parents in strategic moments in their families' lives. Whether your family is close to the Lord or far away, this conversation is for you.
All right, welcome back to our GFC kids, or not, these ain't kids, sorry. This is the GFC church. family milestone. I'm just so used to saying that on the camera and everything else, so I apologize. But this is the GFC family milestones, and we're going to jump back into the basics. And we're going to talk about maybe an important topic that goes on at your house and maybe conversations you have about your house and the rules you apply, and maybe your kids wanting to hang out or be with somebody else at another house. So this is called Sleepovers. Is it okay? So I know everybody around this room here, myself, Caleb, Heather, and Amanda, we've all probably done sleepovers growing up, but I don't think that's really a thing nowadays very much.
Speak for yourself, Ron.
Yeah, we have them weekly.
Gotcha.
Did you not get invited, Ron?
Nope, I didn't get invited. Didn't get invited to sleepovers. So that's our topic for today. But, you know, the basics milestone is just trying to help kids from that K-5 to 5th grade age, and you parents kind of walk along beside this, because our kids come up to us all the time. Tinley just came up the other day and said, hey, so-and-so is going to the friend's house. And, of course, the first comment is, well, you're supposed to kind of know this ahead of time. We can't just get you over there and everything, but it is still going on, as they said. And so let's jump in this subject. Before we do, any memories of sleepovers and stories that we can share? And I mean, I can jump in one. I usually stayed over at my friend's house and just kind of fill everybody in. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a WWF superstar. So me and my friend had rings built out of our trampolines in the backyard. So we would spend hours just wrestling each other on the trampoline. And then we'd come in the house and watch WWE tapes, as it's called now, and WWF stuff and pay-per-views. And so that's usually what our sleepovers consisted of, and my friends that I grew up with. So we were just beating each other up and everything. So
Love it.
Oh, well, if you haven't listened to the bullying podcast, you need to go back and listen to it, because that was 6th grade. The first time I ever was invited to spend the night at somebody's house, I was in 7th grade. And the story I'm about to share briefly is every parent's nightmare. So it's not like this all the time, okay? But yeah. I went from hanging out with nobody to being bullied to all of a sudden now, 7th grade, some cool people want me to come spend the night at their house. And I remember showing up, and this was the richest guy in our grade. He was a cool dude. He just had all, I mean, he could have had anybody, man. He chose me and another guy to come spend the night with him. And I was going to make sure I was on my best behavior, had everything packed right. I mean, I don't even know what you're supposed to do. I'm just going to act like I know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And I would say we were there for about 3 hours, and he pulled out a bag of weed.
Oh, I did not see that coming.
In 7th grade, and it was his brother's, and he just pulled it out, and he was just like, do you guys know what this is? And then, so I had an introduction of what that was.
New fear unlocked. Thanks,
anyway,
Caleb.
So that was 7th grade for me. So anyway,
grade.
Who's next?
All right. Who's up?
I mean, mine was at Enon, and we sang songs, so...
That was a lock-in?
It was like a lock-in thing with the whole 6th grade at Bryan. There was no marijuana. Like, sure, some people probably got saved. Yeah, that was it for me.
You were at the church, and I was with the devil's cabbage.
All right.
Lettuce, devil's lettuce.
Is your brain still fried from all the marijuana?
I didn't smoke it, okay? I just saw it.
Yeah, he didn't say.
It could have been grass for all I know.
That's right.
I didn't know what it was.
What you got, Amanda?
My first time with the sleepover, I was in the 5th grade, I think, and just several girls, and I remember it was so late. Everybody, like, parents were in bed. It was so dark, and, you know, you're trying to listen to see who is asleep, or, like, if everybody's quiet so that you can get the shaving cream out. And, I mean, I thought this girl was asleep, and I'm just, like, spraying this stuff. It's so bad. Nothing's happening, and all of a sudden... I had sprayed it all over the comforter set, and I was so terrified that I was going to get in so much trouble by her mom. Yeah, I never, ever, ever wanted to do it again.
Those are great stories, man. So excited to jump in on this. So, Heather, you know, growing up and kids getting to do these kind of things and celebrate these milestones, making new friendships and stuff like that, how important that is to a kid and as a parent to celebrate that with them and meet their friends and everything, whether it's a sleepover or not.
I think it's important. I think it's a little bit in our family, it's a little bit more important for girls than I think it is for boys. I think that comes along a little bit later for boys. But I know some of y'all know, we actually have like a tradition, and for each of my kids' 10th birthday, they get to have a big sleepover because, they're kind of getting into that phase where their friends are a little bit more important, and they're not all about family and going to grandma's house anymore. And so we kind of celebrate that 10th birthday by having a big sleepover for them. Yeah. So I think it is a big milestone.
So you don't invite grandmother over for the big sleepover with all the girls?
We actually had Annie's at grandma's house, so yeah, she was
there. You go. There you go. Awesome. Well, Amanda, I think the main thing that we're trying to help maybe talk to parents about today, whether it's a sleepover or just being at a friend's house, the importance of the rules you set in your house and the importance of our children understanding that even when they're not in our house, there are certain rules that we expect them to follow. So what can that kind of look like, and how can we share that importance with parents and understanding that to make sure their kids know, wherever they are at, whether it's a sleepover at a friend's house, the importance of their behavior and their attitude?
I think it's important to always remind your kiddos who you're representing, not only your family, but Jesus. Mm-hmm. And the way we act, the way we speak, the way we react, all of that says something. And I think it's just very important to instill that, hey, Jesus is who we're representing, and be very careful what you say and how you act. And
whenever we take a group of kids to like a restaurant or something, like our 5th grade leadership, when we take them out to eat before we do things, I always tell them, look, before we go in here, number 1, you're representing the Lord, you're representing God. Number 2, you're representing your family. Mm-hmm. And then number 3, you're representing this church.
Yeah.
So those are 3 things that I always spell to them with my big old eyes and my mean old voice to let them know that if you don't follow those 3 things, you're going to be in some trouble here.
Yeah,
so.
And and I also try to say, hey, if I wasn't there, and don't do it. And if
I was there and you did that, is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah. See, it's hard to get that out, right? Yeah. But but also like, if Jesus was there, would you do it?
What are you talking about? Jesus is always there.
Was there, I'd probably do it. You say I definitely would.
But I tell the kids that too. Not that they're acting up, and I know I keep going here in the ministry and stuff, but even in children's church and stuff like that, sometimes I might ask the kids like, "Hey, if your parents were in here right now, would they want you acting like this?" Yeah. So I think it is important to help kids to know that wherever they're at, it's and not really just us as parents, but God expects us to act a specific way and stuff like that. So, well, Caleb, let's talk a little about the kids and how can we prepare the kids? We've talked about the parents, how to send them off and act the right way, but how do we prepare our kids to maybe do the right thing?
Some of it is just your kid needs to know they need to see you do the right thing.
Absolutely.
They need to see you. Yeah. What do I celebrate? What do I think is wrong? What do I, and not just what I say, but what I do, is the thing that I'm the most excited about is it my faith? Is it the Lord? Is that what it is? Yeah. How do I contradict that? He gets to see how I live my life. And so some of that starts with like, well, what does he see in me, first of all? Not just, hey, don't do this. Well, he knows why I'm saying that because he's seen what I do. Sure. And so some of that I think might start with that, area. But some of those moments you don't know as a parent, when is the right time to have this conversation? And it just kind of gets plopped in your lap. And some of those conversations, a great example is Finn's quarterback for football team.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of friends on his team, and they were all wanting to go celebrate. And some people wanted to go spend the night and stuff, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, they were all going to go eat at Hooters. Okay. And so, anyway, yeah. And so Finn's never been there.
Sure. Yeah.
I've never said, hey guys, let's take the family, anything. And
it's all about the wings.
I've never done that, Yeah. And so, he said, hey, we're going to go. And it was a huge win. Finn had a huge end of the game, man. They were wanting Finn to come, and there are 5 dads over there like, come on, man. You know, they're all like so pumped up. And he walked over and was like, hey, Dad, we're going to go eat. And I was like, well, where are you going? Where do you want to go? And he said, hey, where are we going? And then they, said Hooters. And he said, well, he's like, yeah, that's where we're going, Dad. And I was like, hey, I don't, but we're probably not gonna go there, man. We got to go pick your brother up, or I made something up. I lied to him. And so we got in the car, and as soon as we got in the car, I shut the door and I said, hey, buddy, we're not gonna go there with all your team, and there's a reason why.
Yeah.
And so, he was like, well, what? Well, my kid's in 5th grade, so I kind of talked not to a 5th grader. I was talking to an 8th, 9th, 10th grader now. Yeah. And I was like, well, son, here's one reason, because I don't want you to show up at Hooters and ask for, she's going to say, what do you want to drink? And you can't figure out, do I want something to drink, or try to figure out what do you look like with your shirt off? Yeah. Like, I can't figure out which one I want to,
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, why would I put you there? And if those guys want to start off that way, you're 100% not going to go stay at their house.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was like, that, and I said, buddy, you're just set apart, man.
That's right.
It's okay. It's okay to be set apart, man. Yeah. I was like, you will be able to set a platform and a stage where people will want to come get on that, because they know, like, well, I can go with Finn. That's right. Like, he can do the right thing. I can do that. And I was like, you can help set that platform, man. You can be set apart. And I was like, and so I took him to eat across the street from Hooters, and then we talked about the sign and what the sign looks like. We had I felt like I was talking to a 10th grade boy at that point, and my son's 5th grade, and it was a very awesome conversation that led into, this is why we don't stay at their house.
Yeah,
I think this is why. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's so important why, to have a church family, because, to be honest, sometimes being in the church world, we forget that is the most common thing, not what we are doing.
Sure.
We are the ones who are the oddballs in the world.
Yeah.
And this is what our kids are faced with. And something that Lena said one time, and it's hard for us adults, so imagine for kiddos, but, Mommy, it's so hard to live in this world and not be of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it really is. And you think about it, this is what they are faced with. We have got to have our kiddos in church. We have to have ourselves in community, because it is just a little bit easier when we hear someone else say, no, son, no, sweetheart, we're not going to do that, and here's why. And when you have a friend who's saying, no, I'm the same way, it just
that's
makes
in your
you feel
Sunday
better.
school class.
Yeah. I mean, it helps. It really does, because it gets very, very hard to say no to some things. And that's kind of my question I see here, like sleepovers. Is it okay? So do you guys agree with sleepovers? Like,
I think it again goes back to, because right now for our kids, there is a lot of friends that go to our church that some we know and don't, but then they have neighbors at our house, two kids that come over and play with Jake and Tinley, and they have a ball, and we know this family doesn't go to church.
Right.
So right now for us, it's allowing this friendship to develop, just to hang out with them, just to be outside. We even tell the kids, because it's across the road and stuff, we say, look, if they come over, hang out here outside, play with them, but don't cross the street. And then we tell the 2 kids, hey, just y'all don't come inside. If you need to go potty, go to your house and stuff like that. So right now for us, it's trying to build that relationship and that friendship. So for us, the next step would be, if we can, we'd bring these 2 kids to church with us and continue to develop that friendship. So for me right now, to answer the question, is it okay? Yes, it's okay to have sleepovers, but it depends on the family and the situation, and I would have to feel very comfortable of them and knowing them. And I would tell another family the same thing about me. Like, if you want, I think the last time we had a bunch of people over his house was with our 5th grade leadership, like many years ago. I think it was like Andrew Braden. This is how long ago it was. It was in 5th grade, and they stayed at our house, and we took them to Sunday school for the last Sunday before they moved on to 6th grade. And the parents were fine with it. We had all the girls upstairs, all the boys downstairs, and you have to also, as a family, give trust to those that are coming to your house too. So I think it's a whole trust.
Well, okay, it's not just knowing who they are too. So because with our kids, we know plenty of their parents. It's not knowing their parents is what it is for us. It literally is, I need to know your faith. I need to know the person of faith you are. And so like
and knowing your faith and whether you go to church or not are different things.
Yes.
Because if your kids come home and they're saying, "Oh, well, they go to church," sweetheart, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right,
And you feel like you're taking something away from them when you're like, no, you can't go over there.
Yeah.
You're not taking anything away from them.
Right.
Like, and I don't even think you're protecting them. It's not any of that. It's like, this is the standard and this is what we do.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have a standard.
And it's easier to say no when you have a standard up front.
Yes.
For a little while, we said we just completely said no to anyone and everyone. We were being asked all the time, and then it was kind of like, well, I kind of know them, but I don't know them well enough. I'm not going to let them go here, but I will let them go here. And you feel that pressure from parents of like, oh, well, they'll let them go to this house, but no, we're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Until we really started learning and got closer with parents and so forth. And they still have very limited places where they're allowed to go, even at, 16 years old, 17 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes
The
just
best that you can do.
as important, though, as a teenager as it is when they're 6, and it's different in my family. Annie, being the oldest and the only girl, she was blessed in the fact that a lot of her good friends are my good friends.
Yeah.
People that we do life with all the time, that we vacation with, that we go out to eat with, that we go to church with. And so she was able to start spending the night with people sooner than what the boys are. To this day, the boys have only spent the night together. They do everything together right now, but with one person, like Tom Zelko, who's on staff here. Only place they've ever been.
Yeah.
Like, the very first birthday party I ever even dropped them off and let them out was Finn's, I think, over the summer. I mean, and you can't be too careful.
And it got crazy.
What's up? Yeah, and that's not saying, if I stay at someone's birthday party, I genuinely, enjoy being around their friends' parents and things like that. There's other people, but I think you have to look at each child individually too, and where they're at and who and all those things too.
So I think what we're kind of answering here, and then I'd like to jump back into one other thing. It is important for parents to stand your ground and watch your family and the faith that it's built upon, that this house serves the Lord. And it's important that what y'all said, it's not just about going to church, it's the faith that this house is built upon. But I would like to jump to one thing before we finish here. So we kind of talked about, and Amanda kind of mentioned this, when we tell our kids, hey, no, we're not going to go eat there, or hey, we're not going to stand here. And then our kids ask that question or say, hey, it's so hard to be a Christian in this world, even though I'm not in this world. So how do we help, just last thing to talk to the parents real quickly, how can we help kids accept that good kid label that could come from other friends and people in their classroom? Like, oh, that's that good kid,
I'll say this. I look at one of mine, I'm like, you know what, baby girl, I am proud
That's right.
that you look like that to them, that they are making fun of you, that they do tell you, oh, you're going to grow up and live in a church and baby, be proud, because they said you will be persecuted, or the word of God says that they persecuted me.
Absolutely.
Be proud of it, baby. Be I mean, I know that it's hard for a kid to but yeah, and still, it makes me happy to think that people see her differently.
Yeah, very good. Anybody else?
You go ahead.
Everybody handles it differently. Okay, you might not like the way I handle it. It's okay. All right,
but that's what we're having these for. I think it's great to hear this.
I tell Finn and Rhett that the Lord has gifted them with an insane ability when it comes to athletics and sports. And I was like, Finn, sports is a great equalizer. And I said, at some point the Lord can take that away from you.
Sure.
And I said, but right now He has blessed you with it. Mm-hmm. And the best way to honor Him with that is to hold fast to His standard.
That's right.
And so, hey, He has set you apart. And He's given you a great gift. Mm-hmm. Now be wise with it. And I'm just going to tell you, because He has given you this gift, you can be set apart and set a stage, and people will accept that.
Yeah.
And people will because you can throw touchdowns and you run, and if you say, hey, blessed be the name, people will say, blessed be the name. You've been given a great thing. Honor the Lord with it, and let Him continue to use that platform. Absolutely. And now there's a whole nother conversation when one day that will be taken away from him, but right now it's kind of the same thing with Red. Hey, you've been given such great gifts, son. Hey, use the gift that God has given you,
That's
man,
right.
to help build this platform for not your name, but the name of God.
That's right.
So,
Awesome. Heather?
I guess this kind of builds off what Caleb and everyone's saying, but I just, even not even sleepovers, but homework, like Annie got an 80. And I'm like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, are you serious? That's a B. And, like, I was one of the highest grades in the class. And I'm like, no, you've been given all these tools to succeed.
Yeah.
Others haven't. Okay. So I don't want to hear, we don't compare ourselves to others. You're you. Okay. We are raising you to be extraordinary, not ordinary like the rest of the world. So I don't want to hear it, and that's not bragging. Like when Caleb's talking about athletics, he's not bragging. He's just highlighting the gifts that the Lord has given them.
Yep.
And as parents, if we're nurturing those gifts, we are raising them to be extraordinary and not live this ordinary life that's dumbed down to the mundane and just, following the crowd and all that. So I'm like, literally tough. Like, I'm sorry that that's your biggest problem right now, sweetie.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that blessing, that the biggest thing is that you couldn't go to this restaurant or you couldn't go do this, because there's much worse things out there.
Sure. So I think, just to finish up, I think it's important to know that parents, as far as sleepovers is okay, you have to pray and make that decision based off your family, your situation, but there's nothing more important than your faith. And may you stand strong in your faith. May you hold on to that. May you take the opportunity to share it with your children, with your families, and then those that they make friends with, and just continue to pray for those friendships and pray for the impact that they can have, because they truly do have value. God's given them gifts. And we are honored to share our gifts with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed these stories and laughed with us, and hopefully we've encouraged you and maybe helped answer this question. Sleepovers is okay? Awesome. Well, I'm encouraged to you guys too, so thank you so much. And church family, thank you for listening in, and we look forward to having another podcast with you guys. And thank you for allowing us to walk with you through this milestone.